record lows at our nation's largest water reservoir.
To me, the word crisis means somebody's not getting their water, and we're not there.
Sustaining the Southwest, how the lower Colorado River Basin has managed over the years. A look at life on the lake.
My grandpa thought he was going to work a little and fish a lot, and it was the exact opposite. He worked a lot and fished a little.
Plus, what can we learn from Nevada? This is Arizona Week. Hello, and thanks for joining us. This is Lake Mead, the largest water reservoir in the United States. For the first time in nearly 80 years, the water level has dropped to an all-time low. What's known as the bathtub ring reflects where the water level once was and where it is now.
Well, Lake Mead was filled after the completion of Hoover Dam, which was about 1935. It took about 4 years or so for the lake to actually be filled once the Colorado River was released and it was allowed to gather into this big basin. And it was designed to be a reservoir, a holding reservoir, to capture the water in good years so that it could control the river from flooding and trickling and flooding, but also be a good source of water, a reliable source of water for years to come.
We see where the bathtub ring is, so we can assume that it was full at one point.
Correct. It's been full, of course, when it was filled. It was full again in the 90s, and then actually it came close to overtopping in 1983. And it was so full in 1983 that we had to open the spillways. And the spillways were built into the sides of the dam for the purpose of letting water go around the dam and not overtop it. And we don't like to use the spillways because we believe that the water should be used for beneficial use always. And what that means is we deliver water first and we generate hydropower from those water deliveries. And when we're opening the spillways, we're not generating hydropower and it's not delivering water based on an order.
So Lake Mead does more than hold water. Now we see the levels are dropping. What does that mean?
Well, that means that we are struggling in our hydropower because there's less pressure to push the water through the dam. We have been able to make our water deliveries, the contracts that we hold for the lower basin, and we'll make them again in 2017, it looks like at this point. But it is the lowest we've been in history since the lake was filled. The hydrology hasn't been good, 16 years of drought. We're pretty worried about it.
We often hear the word worry, but we also hear crisis. What's the appropriate term to use right now?
I would say we're worried about it. I think that that is the appropriate term because we're acting on it. And I say that because there are programs in place where the states and Mexico actually are looking at voluntary reductions, coming to the table with some of the larger irrigation districts, the states themselves, and saying we better do something voluntarily to reduce the water we take, to leave it in the system for the health of the system. To me, the word crisis means somebody's not getting their water, and we're not there.
When people see large amounts of water like this, they often think of evaporation. Is that what's happening here?
Well, it's part of it. Lake Mead is 242,000 acres of surface level, and we get a 3% evaporation level every year. So that's a lot of water.
Climate phenomenons like El Nino sometimes make people hopeful. This year it didn't turn out to be as we expected. What did that mean for Lake Mead?
We're reliant on the upper basin, the Rocky Mountains, for the water to come into the upper Colorado River Basin and thus come down here to the lower basin and into Lake Mead. It didn't quite give us what we'd hoped for, but we did get a pretty good percentage of inflow. We got up to about 90% as all things were tallied. That's better than we've had in the last few years. We've gotten as low as 23% of average in a couple of years back to back. So it still didn't give us what we needed, but we got more than we've had in the past.
Is Lake Mead half full or half empty?
Lake Mead is 37% full.
End of the summertime, what will it look like?
The end of June, Lake Mead is going to drop to about elevation 1070, and that is going to be a historic low. It's the lowest it's been since Lake Mead was filled. That being said, it's going to rise again towards the end of the year. Summertime, it always dips because that's when a lot of the agriculture makes calls for their water based on the contracts they hold with reclamation. So we're used to seeing it drop in the summertime. But because it's low already, it's going to drop to a historic low. But we're going to come back up in the wintertime and hopefully up to a level that will give us some breathing room going into 2017. I think it's really important when people come out to Hoover Dam, they not only enjoy the amazing engineering that went into this structure, but they look at this bathtub ring, and whether they come from Europe or Asia or South America or Canada or here in the United States, that they go home with the message to think about where their water comes from. It's easy to turn on the tap and there's the water. But when you look at this and realize, wow, our water is a finite resource, we better take care of it. It really is an in-your-face demonstration that this water is a very precious resource, especially to the Southwest.
What does all this mean for us in Arizona? The Central Arizona Project provides water to more than 80% of our state, serving Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal counties. The journey begins in the Colorado River and then into Lake Havasu and Lake Pleasant. At any given minute, nearly 8 billion gallons of water are managed by CAP.
Our canal is really an interesting engineering marvel. It flows by gravity along a contour, and when we run out of contour, we have a pump station that lifts it up to the next elevation, because we're moving uphill from Lake Havasu to Tucson. Havasu is about 1,000 feet in elevation. Phoenix is about 1,500 feet, and Tucson is about 3,000 feet in elevation. So you see the canal flowing in an open channel, and it's on a grade slightly sloping to the east here. And it's moving at 2 to 3 miles per hour, which is faster than most Olympic athletes can swim. So it's a really fast current. Today, it's the second largest river, if we were to characterize it as a river in Arizona. The Grand Canyon would be the largest. And it's flowing uphill from the river to Tucson. We're the largest single consumer of electricity to lift that water. And at one point, our pumping plant at Lake Havasu was the largest single-stage pumping plant in the nation. It's about 16.5 feet deep in most of these sections, and that's because we want to build. It was designed to be very efficient in how we move water, how we lift it, and how it flows. So it's a steady current. It's inviting, but it is. The water's typically cold and fast moving, so that's why our canals are fenced to keep folks out of it. Arizona gets a significant portion of its water supply, its renewable water supply, from the Colorado River. It also utilizes groundwater, and for a portion of central Arizona, we utilize Salt River and Verde River water.
Water levels at Lake Mead continue to drop. What does that mean exactly?
Lake Mead is the backbone of the Colorado River system. It's the largest reservoir in North America. It can capture more than twice the annual supply of the Colorado River for storage. It holds that water and releases it to water users like CAP, but also water users in California and Nevada. And we are using more water than is available out of the Colorado River system. No one's taking more than they have a right to, but we have an allocation problem. The compact between the basin states was completed in 1922, and at that time we felt, the scientists and the engineers of the time believed that there would be more water available for the longer term than we have today. As Lake Mead declines, it will eventually trigger a shortage. The Secretary of the Interior, who manages these enormous reservoirs on the Colorado, will declare that there isn't enough water to meet demands, and Arizona and the CAP project will suffer the first reduction. That could happen as early as 2018. What that means is that the water that CAP delivers for banking for our future supplies and for agriculture will be reduced. Our ag customers will suffer probably a 50% reduction in supply. The good news is that while agriculture suffers, our municipalities and our tribal customers will be insulated from those impacts for many years.
Does this mean we'll start to see water restrictions in Arizona?
There are many of our customers, Tucson and Phoenix among them, who have drought contingency plans that are triggered by shortages in Lake Mead. So we anticipate that some of our municipal customers will enact their drought plans when we suffer that first shortage. But it's up to each individual customer on how they respond to those reductions.
You're an expert in this area. Are you worried?
I am not worried. I am concerned because we need the commitment for renewed investment in our water resource infrastructure. When the CAP was authorized in 1968, there was a significant effort by the communities in Arizona to take on the cost of building this $4.5 billion project. We're repaying that cost today, and we're reaping the benefits of those investments. I think water leaders today are confronted with the opportunity to renew those investments, expand those investments, so we have a robust water supply for our children, our grandchildren, and the economic well-being of Arizona.
Every day, the water level here at Lake Mead is measured and analyzed. Later this summer, hydrologists will decide whether or not to declare a shortage.
It is concerning. Lake Mead water level has dropped about 140 feet since the start of the drought in 2000. This dry period is the driest on record, and if the drought were to continue and the lake level were to continue to decline, then it would become even more concerning, and it would take at least 1 or 2 to 3 good years of hydrology to start to replenish the storage in Lake Mead and Lake Powell. Yeah, in particular, if the drought were to continue, these levels are concerning.
Do hydrologists measure the lake levels every single day?
Yes, we do. We have a real-time gauge that's actually at the dam. It measures and reports the elevation and the storage on an hourly basis, and that information is actually on our website as well.
37% full, is that the rating at this point?
Yes, I believe it's actually 36%, so maybe it was 37% last week. This time of year, water orders downstream of Hoover are at higher than they are at other times of year, and as a result, the lake level typically declines through about the end of June. And so right now the lake level is at about elevation 1072.7. It's projected to decline about 1 more foot by the end of June before it kind of starts to go back up again towards the end of the calendar year.
What number would make you happy or feel like this is a good situation?
There's something in the operations between Lake Powell and Lake Mead that's called equalization. That last occurred in 2011 when Lake Powell released an additional 50% of what it typically would release, and Lake Mead went up about 50 feet. So I'd like to see that type of hydrology again occur, because really we need that type of hydrology to start to replenish storage in Lake Mead.
How would you describe this lake to people? How deep is it? How wide is it?
The width varies because it's not like, some lakes are round or oval, but because there's different arms of the lake, like the Overton Arm and the Boulder Canyon, it varies. But the depth of the lake at the dam is about 320 feet down to the point that we call dead pool, where we can no longer release water through the facility. Right now, we're about 180 feet above that and 140 feet to the top of the dam.
How much water are we talking? How do you describe this to the average person?
Right now, there's about 9.4 million acre feet in Lake Mead. That's the 36% full that you mentioned earlier. It's an acre foot is approximately 1 football field that's covered with a foot of water. So we're talking 9.4 million football fields covered with a foot of water. When the lake is full, there's about 26 million acre feet in the lake.
An acre provides water to how many families?
Approximately 2 households per year.
A lot of the numbers that scientists use are based on history, but climate change has become a factor. So has the drought. So what does that tell us about the future?
So this current 16-year period, it's the driest 16-year period in 100 years of record keeping. And it's one of the driest if you extend the record back 1,200 years. So we're right on the edge of what we've experienced historically. So then the question is, when you relate that to climate change, is this the new norm for inflow in the Colorado River, or is this just part of that natural cycle of hydrology where we're going to have a low spot now and it could potentially go up later? One thing about hydrology in the Colorado River Basin, and it is quite variable from year to year, and we've seen that where you have a very wet year followed by a couple very dry years, and next year could be just as easily very wet or very dry again. So it's really difficult for scientists, I think, to say that that's a natural climate variability or if it's a changing climate. And I think we just need more time to figure that out.
As a hydrologist, would you describe this as half full, half empty? And then we hear the word crisis. Is any of that appropriate right now?
I would say that right now it's about a third full. I don't know if we're in a crisis situation. Even though the lake is as low as it is and has fallen as much as it has since the start of the drought, we still haven't had a shortage condition in the lower Colorado Basin. We've still been able to make normal water deliveries, and that's really due to the amount of storage that the Colorado River Basin have, which is about 4 times the annual natural inflow. But there's a lot of work being done to try to offset the impacts of the drought so that we don't go into a crisis mode.
Drought restrictions began here in Nevada back in 2003. Since then, it's been a commitment to better manage a precious resource.
Southern Nevada Water Authority was formed in 1991 to address Southern Nevada's unique water needs. Prior to 1991, we had a lot of different water agencies and utilities that were all vying over the remaining drops of the Colorado River. We had some unallocated water for our state, and those water agencies wanted that water so that they could continue to provide a reliable water supply for their individual communities. Well, in order to really unify our community and speak with one voice, all of the water agencies set their differences aside and formed the Southern Nevada Water Authority. We all pooled our water resources together so that we were no longer keeping our individual water for our individual city limits, but rather pooling those resources for the entire region. And as such, that gave the water agencies a lot more flexibility in being able to meet water demands. It also allowed us for uniformity within the rules of conservation. So we have consistent conservation messages and we have consistent conservation rules regardless of what city limit you live in the Las Vegas Valley.
You mentioned that Las Vegas is unique. There are 40 million people coming here every year, and a lot of people think the Strip is a huge water guzzler. Is that true?
Well, here in Las Vegas, we have 40 million people that come to our valley every single year, and they come here for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they come to play the slot machines, or they come for a sporting event, or maybe they just come to visit family. But we have a very diverse tourism industry. Now, most of those tourists stay on the Las Vegas Strip. What most people don't know is that the Las Vegas Strip is one of our most water efficient sectors here in Southern Nevada. We reclaim and recycle nearly 100% of our indoor water use. So everything that goes down a drain gets reclaimed, we treat it to near drinking water standards, and we return it to Lake Mead. And for every gallon we put back in Lake Mead, we can take another gallon out, and it doesn't count against our minimal Colorado River allocation. So the Las Vegas Strip, most of their water use is indoors. I could turn on every bathtub, every shower, every faucet on the Las Vegas Strip, and it wouldn't increase the amount of water that we deplete from the Colorado River because we return nearly 100% of that water back to the system. So Las Vegas resorts are amongst the most efficient sectors in our community, and they're our economic backbone.
The water in Las Vegas, where does it come from?
90% of Las Vegas's water supply comes from the Colorado River, and we pull it directly from Lake Mead. The remaining 10% comes from groundwater resources directly below our feet. Southern Nevada has already taken considerable steps to increase our water security. We've installed a new intake out at Lake Mead. It's a third intake, much deeper within the lake. We've got progressive and comprehensive water conservation programming that has reduced our water use by approximately 100,000 acre feet. It's about 30% of our water use that we've seen as far as conservation has been reduced. We're also building a third pumping station out at Lake Mead. It's going to allow us to continue pumping water from that lake even if lake levels continue to decline. In fact, the pumping station and the third intake coupled together will allow us to draw water from a very deep part of Lake Mead, so deep in fact that if water is not able to pass through Hoover Dam because lake levels have gotten so low, we will actually still have access to a portion of our water supply in the lake.
We hear a lot about shortage, restrictions. How do you as a water authority communicate that to your customers?
Well, anytime you're talking about shortages on the Colorado River, you're really talking about one state taking less water. Nobody likes to talk about taking less water or even having access to less water. And that's why conservation is so important. When we talk about shortages here on the Colorado River, however, for Southern Nevada, our maximum level of shortage that we currently have agreed to is 20,000 acre feet. We only get 300,000 acre feet of Colorado River water every year. We get the smallest slice compared to any other Colorado River user. So 20,000 acre feet compared to our 300,000 acre foot allocation is a reasonable reduction. But you do have to keep in mind that we right now are only using about 2/3 of our existing Colorado River water. And so any shortages that we have, we'll be able to absorb in that unused water. So we've done a lot of our heavy lifting on the front end from a conservation standpoint. We've drawn down our water demands. We've drawn down the amount of water that we're treating and delivering for our community because of conservation, and that's allowed us more flexibility to be able to handle shortages in the future.
Why does Nevada get such a small slice of the pie?
Well, when the Colorado River was divvied up back in the 1920s, Las Vegas was a whistle stop. We did not have the population that we have today, and there really wasn't much foresight in thinking that this community could grow to a community of 2 million people. Yet here we are. So back in the 1920s, the focus, a lot of the focus that our state had was trying to get more energy or more power from the Hoover Dam production side, more so than a water resource. You couple that with the fact that the Colorado River was divided up primarily based on agriculture, which is one reason why you have California with such a large allotment, because they had such a large agricultural community. Here in Las Vegas, there was no agriculture at that time.
Lake Mead is more than a place to store water, it's a recreation site. Every year, more than 7 million people visit this national park.
So there's a lot of misconceptions that Lake Mead is dried up, that it's dirty, and I would encourage people to come out and experience the lake and come and see the adventure, see the beauty of the land that is here, because the people who actually come out here know that those are just rumors, that it's false, that it's really a beautiful lake. We're working constantly to make sure that people have access to the water, because that is our main mission, is for people to come out and be able to recreate on the lake. The biggest thing we've noticed the change is that there's more beachy areas. Obviously, we're going to continue to extend the launch ramps, and that is something that affects us, and we have to make sure that there's still access to the lake. The recreation area was established so that because people were coming out here anyways, and so it made it an area where people had facilities to come to and park rangers to protect them. And we have a life jacket loaner station on some of our major developed areas. Take a life jacket and use it for the day for free. We just ask that they put it back. Last year we were the 5th most visited park in the national park system, and on our busy holiday weekends we can get up to 300,000 people. While we have many hot springs, Arizona Hot Springs is one of our most popular ones, and there's also a beautiful hike that people can take to the hot springs and reach the water and see all the different geology that is in the area. We're one of the most diverse national recreation areas in the country, not only from the water area, but from the geology, the type of plant and wildlife you see here. We're so diverse. both on Lake Mead and Lake Mojave. There's plenty of unique experiences and plenty of space for everyone to come out and find their own secluded spot or come to the beach and have fun with a bunch of people.
Lake Mead is a part of this nation's livelihood, and it's a point of pride for Nevada.
My name is Bruce Nelson. My grandparents started this business in 1957. Their last name was Grippentag, and in 1957 they had a couple small wood cottages on the beach, a small dock, a couple rental boats. My grandpa thought he was going to work a little and fish a lot, and it was the exact opposite. He worked a lot and fished a little. And after many years, we've built a great relationship here with the National Park Service, where we have over 1,500 slips. We have rental docks where we overnight moorage. We have rental boats where people can take a boat out for the day, jet skis, regular boats like this, or pontoons. 2 restaurants and 2 stores for all the convenience type items. Anytime the water drops, there always seems to be a negative press effect where it's nothing but bad news about the lake dropping. Now, the water going down isn't necessarily a good thing, but what people don't understand is this lake is huge. And even though we've seen lowering water levels and historic water levels at that, low water levels, it's still a gigantic lake where people can go out, have a good time. It's plenty deep enough. There's beautiful beaches. And that one thing is about low water, that's a positive, is there's actually better beaches when the water's low than there is high, because when the water's high, it's more rock. You get down, if things got to some emergency type levels, there's things that we would have to change and the Park Service would have to change. But overall, this is where we are. The Park Service does a great job of keeping boating access for people ready and easy, and it's just here for people to enjoy. And I always challenge people to come out and experience it themselves. Everybody has something in common. They love the water. There's camaraderie. Everybody waves at each other. And it's just the community itself of people that come from all around the country and world to enjoy a very interesting piece of Americana.
This lake is all important to the state's growth and economy. Its fate is in the hands of Arizona, other southwestern states, and Mother Nature. For all of us at Arizona Public Media, I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us.